Jack Payne, Grow Team Advisor with Co-op. I'm at the Xtreme Innovation Trial at Horseshoe Canyon. Last week we did a video talking a little bit about inoculations and the Lallemand products that are out there, the Lull Fix. I got Justin McNally with me again today, and we thought we would do a follow-up video today, just getting a little more, I guess, into detail of doing the assessment of nodulation. So Justin, I'm just going to turn it over to you. How do you assess the nodulation on a pulse crop, and what sort of a ranking system do you use?
Okay, thank you very much, Jack, for having me back again. Today I'm actually going to use the new handy dandy sheet that we made this past spring. So when we go in to assess a field, normally first you want to look at this and see what the crop looks like. So for this particular crop here, it's fairly good emergence, good color. So as you can see on the display board, and then also I go and also stage the crop. So from staging, I figured it's around 10 node, and there's some early flower. So I've also put that down as well. So 10 node and early flower, and then you also want to look and see if you see any disease, and there is a little bit of disease in the lower stem here, but other than that, it looks okay. With all the moisture you've had this past spring and this summer, it looks pretty good for a wet crop.
Right.
Then looking at the sheet here, so that first bit I talked about was growth, plant growth and vigor of the plant. So I would probably mark that about a 5 to a 4 or 5, kind of in between. We have the scale's a little bit weird, but this is based off of what we. I've grabbed the same scale from SAS pulse growers. So this is something that's been done on the SAS pulse growers. So I'd say about a 4 or 5. And then you look at a color and abundance of your nodules. So I've taken the liberty of cleaning the plants. Normally when you grab these plants, they're not as clean. This soil is very clay based, so you have to be very careful when you're taking your nodules and cleaning the nodules, because this clay will pull the nodules off.
Right.
So for example, this plant right here, you can notice that there's a lot of nodules on this plant. So I would say, based off, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 groups, probably more than 5 nodules. Right? But if you look at the plant beside it, it's only got 3 groups of 5.
Right.
So you would probably, this plant probably a 5 for nodulation, but this group one would probably be about a 3.
Right.
Just so because of the...
You've got a range, so you got to take into account the range, not just put the blinders on and say, I'm going to take the best one.
Yeah, exactly. So that's the key thing, is you kind of want to get an idea, and this is what this sheet is allowing you for, is it's going to give you it gives you a range. So if you look at the bottom here, for effective nodulation, you're not always looking for 15, you're looking for anywhere between 11 to 15, is what they're looking for.
Right.
So whereas this plant's probably only got 1 nodulation, so that's going to be 1, probably a 1.
This one has just very small, like there's only 1 or 2.
There's a few, but there's a few groups around the crown. There's maybe a few there, so you're maybe in that 2 to 3.
2 to 3.
And then you've got a few more, like this one's back. This one's got 3 groups, so so it gives you your variance, but then at least if you do it for each crop, if you do it for each plant, then at the end of it you'll have an average, and then you'll get an average score, or you can do a total score.
Right.
So that's kind of the 2 options you have.
Right.
And this is a metric that you can use if you're going to go back and look at the field again. You can then say this is earlier on in the season, and you're looking at early nodulation compared to later nodulation. It's a way to kind of see if you've seen any improvement with the crop.
Right. So it's just a good way, I guess. It's sort of it's somewhat subjective, and if you have to make that decision. But I guess if you're the same person doing it and you're using sort of the same criteria, then everything's evaluated the same. And so whatever your total score comes out at least it's consistent, I guess, across your farm.
Exactly. So this was something that we put together because we noticed that there was a lot of people were having challenges in how to scout a field, and then B, this gives you some sort of criteria that you can look at when you pull the plants, rather than just taking nice photos.
Right.
So.
And then nodule position, how do you...
So nodule position, this one here, this plant it's on the lateral roots as well.
Right.
So that one would be you're probably be a 5, probably one of the only 5s in the ones that I've grabbed. This one's on the lateral as well, so this is probably a 5 as well because it's on the lateral position, and there's nothing around the crown actually. So you're kind of in,
This one is probably all just on the crown then.
You've got a few down here,
yeah.
but it's maybe be like a 3 or 4.
Right.
So that's kind of how we like. The reason why nodule position really matters is because when you're looking at what the nodules are going to actually use, like which nodules the plants are going to use in this throughout the season, you want the ones to be spread out throughout the crop.
Right.
There's been an argument that the ones that are closer to the crown usually is the inoculant, but because we're using a granule-based product, that's not something that we're really concerned about because you're getting that consistent placement in the soil rather than being in a liquid. If it was a liquid, this would be a different story.
Right. So I'm looking at my score, and I come up with 4, 3, and 4, or 4, 4, and 4. So I guess I'm about 11.5 to a 12 is my.
Which is in that ballpark. I mean, you're seeing effective nodulation.
Right.
And I would also somewhat, because of the amount of moisture we have and the type of soil you have, you somewhat would maybe put that in you could somewhat give a little bit of a bias there because it's heavier clay. Peas don't tend to like heavier soil as much as a sandy soil or lighter soil.
Right.
So that could potentially give you could also play into it as well.
Right. Well, we've had, how would I say, less than ideal conditions. We have had too much moisture with precipitation in certain, how would I say, high rainfall events.
Yep.
And I think I know we had saturated soils at certain points, and that probably had to have an effect on nodulation, because I know I was out here and these plots were absolutely saturated, water was standing. So we've had some less than ideal conditions. So I guess the fact that we're around 11.5 to 12 out of a score of 15, pretty fair.
Yeah, I would agree. And the other thing too, I mean, I've been in some fields, and I mean, you wouldn't think that when it comes to moisture, really moisture does play a huge impact on the color of nodulation of your nodules. And your nodules, like these nodules, are all pretty much pink. Pink looking, which means that they're being effective and working, which is really good to see, a good sign, especially with the challenges you face during the season.
Right, good.